The waggon had drawn up under the churchyard wall, in a spot screened from view, and the driver, nothing loath, soon hauled down the poor heap of household goods. This done, she paid him, reducing herself almost to her last shilling thereby, and he moved off and left them, only too glad to get out of further dealings with such a family. It was a dry night, and he guessed that they would come to no harm. Tess gazed desperately at the pile of furniture. The cold sunlight of this spring evening peered invidiously upon the crocks and kettles, upon the bunches of dried herbs shivering in the breeze, upon the brass handles of the dresser, upon the wicker cradle that they had all been rocked in, and upon the well-rubbed clock-case, all of which gave out the reproachful gleam of indoor articles abandoned to the vicissitudes of a ruthless exposure for which they were never made. Round about were deep-harked hills and slopes, now cut up into little paddocks, and the green foundations that showed where the d'Urberville mansion had once stood. Also an outlying stretch of Egdon Heath that had always belonged to the estate. Hard by, the aisle of the church, called the d'Urberville aisle, looked on imperturbably. "Isn't your family vault your own freehold?" asked Tess's mother, as she returned from a reconnoitre of the church and graveyard. "Why, of course it is, and that's where we will camp, girls, till the place of your ancestors finds us a roof. Now, Tess and Liza and Abraham, you help me. We'll make a nest for these children, and then we'll have another look around." Tess listlessly lent a hand, and in a quarter of an hour the old four-post bedstead was disassociated from the heap of goods, and erected under the south wall of the church, the part of the building known as the d'Urberville aisle, beneath which the huge vaults lay. Over the tester of the bedstead was a beautiful traceried window of many lights, its date being the 15th century. It was called the d'Urberville window, and in the upper part could be discerned heraldic emblems like those on d'Urberville's old seal and spoon. Joan drew the curtains round the bed so as to make an excellent tent of it, and put the smaller children inside. "If it comes to the worst, we can sleep there too for one night," she said. "But let us try further on and get something for the dears to eat. Oh, Tess, what's the use of your playing at marrying gentlemen if it leaves us like this?" Accompanied by 'Liza Lu and the boy, she again ascended the little lane which secluded the church from the townlet. As soon as they got into the street, they beheld a man on horseback, gazing up and down. "Ah, I'm looking for you," he said, riding up to them. "This is indeed a family gathering on the historic spot." It was Alec d'Urberville. "Where is Tess?" he asked. Personally, Joan had no liking for Alec. She cursorily signified the direction of the church, and went on, d'Urberville saying that he would see them again, in case they should still be unsuccessful in their search for shelter, of which he had just heard. When they had gone, d'Urberville rode to the inn, and shortly after came out on foot. In the interim, Tess, left with the children inside the bedstead, remained talking with them a while, till, seeing that no more could be done to make them comfortable just then, she walked about the churchyard, now beginning to be embrowned by the shades of nightfall. The door of the church was unfastened, and she entered it for the first time in her life. Within the window, under which the bedstead stood, were the tombs of the family, covering in their dates several centuries. They were canopied, altar-shaped, and plain, their carvings being defaced and broken, their brasses torn from the matrices, the rivet-holes remaining like martin-holes in a sand-cliff. All of the reminders that she had ever received that her people were socially extinct, there was none so forcible as this spoliation. She drew near to a dark stone on which was inscribed Ostium Sepulchri Antiquae Famillae d'Urberville. Tess did not read Church Latin like a cardinal, but she knew that this was the door of her ancient sepulchre, and that the tall knights of whom her father had chanted in his cups lay inside. She musingly turned to withdraw, passing near an altar tomb, the oldest of them all, on which was a recumbent figure. In the dusk she had not noticed it before, and would hardly have noticed it now but for an odd fancy that the effigy moved. As soon as she drew close to it, she discovered all in a moment that the figure was a living person, and the shock to her sense of not having been alone was so violent that she was quite overcome, and sank down nigh to fainting, not, however, till she had recognized Alec d'Urberville in the form. He leapt off the slab and supported her. "I saw you come in," he said, smiling, "and got up there not to interrupt your meditations. A family gathering, is it not, with these old fellows under us here? Listen." He stamped with his heel heavily on the floor, whereupon there arose a hollow echo from below. "That shook 'em a bit, I'll warrant," he continued. "And you thought I was the mere stone reproduction of one of them. But no, the old order changeth. The little finger of the sham d'Urberville can do more for you than the whole dynasty of the real underneath. Now command me. What shall I do?" "Go away," she murmured. "I will. I'll look for your mother," said he, blandly. But in passing her he whispered, "Mind this, you'll be civil yet." When he was gone she bent down upon the entrance to the vaults and said, "Why am I on the wrong side of this door?" In the meantime Marian and Izz Huett had journeyed onwards with the chattels of the ploughman in the direction of their land of Canaan, the Egypt of some other family who had left it only that morning. But the girls did not for a long time think of where they were going. Their talk was of Angel Clare and Tess, and Tess's persistent lover, whose connection with her previous history they had partly heard and partly guessed ere this. "'Tisn't as though she'd never known him afore," said Marian. "His having won her once makes all the difference in the world. 'Twould be 1,000 pities if he were to tole her away again. Mr. Clare can never be anything to us, Izz, and why should we grudge him to her, and not try to mend this quarrel? If he could only know what straits she's put to, and what's hovering around, he might come to take care of his own." "Could we let him know?" They thought of this all the way to their destination, but the bustle of re-establishment in their new place took up all their attention then, and when they were settled, a month later, they heard of Clare's approaching return, though they had learnt nothing more of Tess. Upon that, agitated anew by their attachment to him, yet honourably disposed to her, Marian uncorked the penny ink bottle they shared, and a few lines were concocted between the two girls. "Honoured Sir, look to your wife if you do love her as much as she do love you, for she is sore put to by an enemy in the shape of a friend. Sir, there is one near her who ought to be away. A woman should not be tried beyond her strength, and continual dropping will wear away a stone, aye, more, a diamond. From 2 well-wishers." This was addressed to Angel Clare at the only place they had ever heard him to be connected with, Emminster Vicarage, after which they continued in a mood of emotional exultation at their own generosity, which made them sing in hysterical snatches and weep at the same time. End of chapter 52. End of Phase the 6th.